I came home after 12 years in the Arctic to find my son serving coffee to strangers in the restaurant I built for him. He handed me a stale muffin and apologized that it was all he could spare. He looked at me with hollow eyes and saw nothing but an old drifter seeking warmth from the November cold. He did not recognize his own father. He did not know that the man in the worn parka was not a vagrant, but a ghost carrying $18 million in mining royalties and a heart full of fire. Before I tear their world apart, let me tell you how we got here. My name is Harold. I am 67 years old. For 12 years, the world believed I was either dead in a mining collapse near Yellowknife or frozen somewhere in the Nunavut wilderness. They were half right. I was trapped in hell, but I crawled my way out. I survived cave-ins, legal battles with corrupt contractors, and a government that tried to bury me along with my claims. I survived because I had one thing worth living for: my son, Daniel. The night I returned to Vancouver, the rain was relentless. It battered the streets of Kitsilano with that particular Pacific Northwest fury that seeps into your bones. I stood on the sidewalk across from the Maple Leaf Bistro, a beautiful heritage building I had purchased outright for $2.3 million 14 years ago. I bought it for my son, so he would have security while I was away working the northern mines. I bought it so he could build his dream while I secured our family's future. My hands trembled as I crossed the street, not from the cold, but from a terrible, desperate hope. I imagined him opening the door. He would be 42 now, perhaps married, perhaps there were grandchildren. I had missed so much. I adjusted my hood. I had not shaved in weeks, and my clothes were deliberately worn. I looked like what I needed to look like. A man with nothing, a man no one would notice. In the lining of my jacket, sewn into the fabric, were the documents that proved I owned half of a rare earth mineral deposit worth more than this entire neighborhood. I pushed open the door. A bell chimed overhead. The warmth hit me first, then the smell of coffee and bacon. The restaurant was busy for a Thursday evening, tables filled with young professionals and families enjoying dinner. A man approached me. He was thin, far too thin. His face was gaunt, his cheekbones sharp beneath skin that had gone gray with exhaustion. He wore a stained apron over clothes that had been washed too many times. His hands were red and cracked from dishwater. I stared at those hands. They were the hands of a laborer, not a restaurant owner. "Can I help you, sir?" His voice was barely a whisper. I opened my mouth to say his name, but the words died in my throat. I looked into his eyes. They were the same blue eyes his mother had given him, the same eyes I had kissed goodbye 12 years ago when he drove me to the airport. It was Daniel, my Daniel, but there was no recognition in his gaze. He looked at me and saw only a homeless man seeking shelter from the rain. "I am sorry, sir," he whispered, glancing nervously over his shoulder. "We do not have any spare tables right now, but I can give you something to eat. Please, take this and wait outside. I will bring you coffee." He pressed a day-old muffin into my hand. His fingers were ice-cold despite the warmth of the restaurant. He was feeding me scraps in the restaurant I had bought for him. "Daniel, who is that?" The voice came from the back. It was sharp, commanding, dripping with practiced disdain. A woman emerged from the kitchen. She was perhaps 45, blonde hair perfectly styled, wearing designer clothes that had no place in a working restaurant. Diamonds glittered on her fingers. Victoria, my daughter-in-law, the woman I had trusted to help run the business while I was away. She looked at me. She squinted at my face, my ragged beard, my cheap clothes. Then a slow smile spread across her face. It was not a smile of recognition. It was the smile of someone who enjoyed watching insects squirm. "A beggar, Daniel? Really?" She laughed. "Get him out of here. He is driving away customers." I felt Daniel flinch beside me. The movement was small, almost imperceptible, but I recognized it. It was the flinch of a man who had been struck before. "I am sorry," he mumbled to me. "Please go." I stood there, holding the muffin, feeling my heart crack into pieces. My son was trembling. My son was afraid. My son was working in his own restaurant like a servant. Just a moment. A new voice. A man walked out from the back office. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a suit that cost more than most people earn in a month. His face was handsome in that cruel way that certain men cultivate. He carried a glass of expensive whiskey. Robert, Victoria's brother. I recognized him from the photos Daniel had sent me years ago. Robert walked up to me. He was close enough that I could smell the alcohol on his breath. He looked me up and down with pure contempt. "You are tracking mud on my floors, old-timer." He gestured with his glass. "Danny boy, get a mop. Clean up after your little friend here." "My floors." He said my floors. In the building I had purchased. Daniel hurried to get a mop. He actually hurried. He moved with the desperate efficiency of someone who knew what happened when he was too slow. "Now then." Robert turned back to me. "Victoria tells me you are bothering her customers. Is that true?" "I just wanted to get warm," I said. I let my voice crack. I let my shoulders slump. I became the broken old man they expected to see. Robert reached into his pocket. He pulled out a $20 bill. He held it up between two fingers, then dropped it on the wet floor at my feet. "There. Get yourself a room at the shelter. And do not come back here. This is a respectable establishment." I looked at the money on the tiles. $20. The price of a large coffee and a sandwich. The price of my dignity. I bent down slowly. My knees ached from the cold, from the years of hard labor in the mines. I picked up the bill. "Thank you," I whispered. "Now get out." Victoria pointed at the door. "Before I call the police." I shuffled toward the exit. But as I passed Daniel, I felt something. A slight pressure on my arm. I looked up. He was staring at me. His brow was furrowed. Something flickered in his eyes. Confusion, recognition, trying to break through years of conditioning. "Wait," he said softly. "Do I know you?" "Daniel." Victoria's voice was a whip crack. "Stop chatting and get back to work. Table 7 needs clearing." The moment shattered. Daniel dropped his gaze and hurried away with his mop. I walked out into the rain. I stood on the sidewalk, letting the water soak through my coat. The muffin was still in my hand. I could not eat it. My throat was too tight. A black SUV pulled up to the curb. The window rolled down. Mr. Morrison. My lawyer, a woman named Catherine, looked at me from the driver's seat. Her face was grim. "Get in." I climbed into the warm leather interior. I peeled off the wet hood and wiped the rain from my face. "Did you see him?" Catherine asked. "I saw him, and—" I closed my eyes. The image of Daniel, thin and frightened, handing me a stale muffin, burned behind my eyelids. "They are going to pay," I said. "Every single one of them. They are going to pay for what they did to my boy." Catherine nodded. She reached into the back seat and handed me a folder. "I found out why he stayed," she said. "Why he did not leave." I opened the folder. Inside was a photograph. A little girl, perhaps 8 years old, with blonde curls and blue eyes that were unmistakably my son's eyes. She was in a hospital bed, connected to machines. "Who is this?" "Your granddaughter. Her name is Emma. She has a congenital heart defect. She needs specialized treatment." Catherine's voice was heavy. "They have been telling Daniel that he owes over $1 million in medical debt. They have been telling him that if he leaves, if he stops working, they will cancel the insurance. They will let her die." I stared at the photograph. My granddaughter, a child I never knew existed, a child they were using as a hostage. And his wife? The mother? Passed away 3 years ago. Complications from pneumonia. Daniel was devastated. "So he is alone," I said quietly. "Alone with a sick daughter and no one to help him." "He thinks he has no one," Catherine corrected. "He does not know about you. He does not know you survived. Victoria told him you were dead. She showed him fake death certificates. She told him you died owing money to dangerous people, and that those debts passed to him. Lies. All of it was lies. There is more." Catherine handed me another document. "The restaurant is not in his name anymore. 3 years ago, Victoria had him sign over the deed. She told him it was to protect the asset from your creditors. She forged the paperwork to make herself the legal owner." I looked at the document. I saw my son's signature, shaky and desperate. I saw the notary stamp. I saw the fraud. "They stole everything from him," I said. "They took his business, his dignity, his hope, and they are using his daughter as a leash. Yes, Catherine started the car. But here is the thing they do not know. The trust you set up before you left, the one that pays for medical expenses for your descendants, it has been active this entire time. Emma's treatments have been fully covered. There is no debt. There never was. I felt the world tilt. The trust. I had almost forgotten. I had set it up 20 years ago, an irrevocable fund managed by a Swiss bank, designed to cover any medical emergency for my family. It paid automatically. It did not need anyone's permission. The hospital has been sending statements to the restaurant, Catherine continued. Zero balance every month. Victoria has been intercepting them. She shreds them and creates fake invoices with inflated numbers. How long? Since Emma was born. 8 years of fake debt. 8 years of slavery. All for a bill that was already paid. I closed the folder. I looked out at the rain-streaked city. What do you want to do, Harold? Catherine asked. I want to destroy them. I want to take everything they have and leave them with nothing. But first, I need my son to trust me again. I need him to know who I am. That will be difficult. He has been conditioned to believe you abandoned him. Victoria has spent 12 years poisoning his mind against you. Then I will have to show him the truth. I will have to prove it. I pulled out a small device from my pocket. It was a listening device. Military grade, no bigger than a button. I had planted one under the counter when I bent down to pick up the money. Let us see what they say when they think no one is listening. Catherine drove us to the hotel. I sat in the darkness of my suite, the small speaker on the table in front of me, and I listened. Robert's voice came first, slurred with whiskey. Did you see that old bum? He actually took the money off the floor. Victoria laughed. Pathetic. These people have no pride. Like your brother-in-law? Robert chuckled. Where is Danny boy anyway? Doing the dishes. Victoria's voice was casual, dismissive. Where else would he be? You know, Robert said, we should probably think about selling this place soon. The real estate market is hot right now. We could get 4 million. Easy. Not yet. Victoria's voice dropped. We need to make sure there are no loose ends. The old man's estate is still technically in probate. If anyone looks too closely, they might find the original deed. What about Danny? He could cause problems. Danny will do what he is told. Victoria's laugh was cruel. He thinks he owes us his daughter's life. He thinks if he makes one wrong move, we will pull the plug on her treatment. He is not going anywhere. I gripped the edge of the table. The wood creaked under my fingers. And the girl? Robert asked. Emma? She is getting better, you know. The doctors say she might not need surgery after all. Good. Less paperwork. Victoria yawned. But we keep telling Danny she is getting worse. We keep telling him the bills are piling up. The more desperate he is, the harder he works. You are evil, Vic. Robert sounded impressed. I am practical. This restaurant clears $100,000 a year in profit. Danny runs it for free. Why would I change anything? I turned off the speaker. My hands were shaking, but not with weakness. They were shaking with rage so pure it felt like electricity in my veins. They were torturing my son with lies about his own daughter. They were making him work like a slave to pay debts that did not exist. They were laughing about it. Catherine was sitting across from me, her face pale. We have enough, she said quietly. Fraud, extortion, elder abuse by proxy. We could go to the RCMP right now. No. I stood up. I walked to the window and looked out at the city lights. Not yet. I need more. I need them to commit something they cannot talk their way out of. I need them to sign their own death warrant. What are you thinking? They want to sell the restaurant, I said. Let us help them. Let us make them an offer they cannot refuse. You want to buy your own restaurant? I want to buy their confession. I turned to face her. Set up a shell company. Make them an offer. Something ridiculous. 6 million cash. Fast closing. No questions asked. They will be suspicious. They will be greedy, I said. Greed makes people stupid. It makes them rush. It makes them cut corners. And when they cut corners, they make mistakes. And Daniel? I looked at the photograph of my granddaughter. I am going to see her tomorrow. I am going to meet Emma. And then I am going to find a way to reach my son. The next morning, I went to BC Children's Hospital. I wore the expensive suit I had brought from the north. I walked like a man who owned things. Because I did. The administrator met me in her office. Her name was Mrs. Chen, and she looked nervous. "Mr. Morrison," she said, "I was not aware you were back in the country. Your foundation has been so generous over the years." I smiled. My foundation, the trust I had set up, the money that had been paying Emma's bills without anyone knowing. "I would like to see my granddaughter," I said, "and I would like to see the account records for her care." She pulled up the files. I leaned forward, scanning the numbers. There it was. 8 years of treatments, surgeries, specialized care, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in the column marked balance due, a single number, 0. "Mr. Morrison," Mrs. Chen said carefully, "I should tell you, a woman has been calling, claiming to be the child's guardian. She has been asking us to send bills to a different address. She wanted us to send statements showing amounts owed. Did you comply?" "No, sir. Our records show the trust pays everything directly. There is nothing to bill." We told her as much, but she was very insistent. I nodded slowly. I knew exactly who that woman was. "May I see Emma?" She led me through the corridors to the pediatric ward, room 412. I stopped at the window. Inside, a little girl was sitting up in bed, drawing with crayons. She had blonde curls and my son's eyes. She was pale, but she was smiling. She was drawing a picture of a house with a garden. I pressed my hand against the glass. This was my blood. This was the child they had threatened. This was the leverage they used to break my son. "She is doing well," Mrs. Chen said. "The latest tests show significant improvement. She may not need the surgery we originally planned. It is quite remarkable, actually." I felt tears prick at my eyes. I blinked them away. "Has her father visited?" "Every day." Mrs. Chen's voice softened. "He comes after his shift at the restaurant, stays until she falls asleep, then goes back to work the night shift. He looks exhausted, but he never misses a visit. He loves her very much. My son. Working himself to death for a debt that did not exist, then spending every spare moment with his daughter, never giving up, never abandoning her, just like I had taught him. "I want to meet her," I said, "but not yet. Not until I can introduce myself properly." I turned away from the window. The image of Emma burned into my mind. Catherine was waiting for me in the lobby. "The offer has been sent," she said. 6 million, cash, closing in 72 hours. Good. I checked my watch. Now we wait. We did not have to wait long. That evening, my phone buzzed. It was a text from the surveillance team I had hired to monitor the restaurant. "They are celebrating," the message read. "Champagne." Lots of shouting. I smiled. The fish had taken the bait. I activated the listening device. Victoria's voice filled my earpiece. $6 million, Robert. 6 million. We can be out of the country by next week." Robert was laughing. "I told you this place was a gold mine. All we needed was the right buyer. There is one condition." Victoria's voice sobered slightly. "They need Danny to sign a waiver, some kind of legal thing about previous claims. So, make him sign." Robert sounded impatient. "Threaten the kid again. Works every time." I heard Victoria sigh. "Fine. But he has been asking questions lately. He saw that old man yesterday, and something spooked him. He keeps staring at that picture of his father. His dead father," Robert emphasized. "Who is never coming back. Danny knows the score. He will sign whatever we put in front of him." I took off the earpiece. "Catherine," I said, "I need you to arrange something for me. A formal meeting, a conference room, somewhere nice. For the closing? For the reckoning." The next day, I returned to the restaurant. This time, I did not go inside. I waited in the alley behind the building, near the service entrance, near the dumpsters, where they made my son take out the garbage. It was past midnight. The restaurant had closed hours ago, but I knew Daniel would still be inside, cleaning, preparing for tomorrow, working himself into an early grave. The back door opened. Daniel emerged, carrying 2 heavy garbage bags. He looked even worse than before. His shoulders were hunched against the cold, his breath fogged in the November air. He threw the bags into the dumpster and stood there for a moment, leaning against the wall, staring up at the sliver of sky visible between the buildings. I stepped out of the shadows. He jumped, spinning around, his hands coming up defensively. "Please," I said quickly, holding up my palms. "I am not here to hurt you." He stared at me. In the dim light, I could see his face change. The fear gave way to confusion. "You," he said. "You are the man from yesterday. The homeless man." I nodded. I stepped closer, letting the security light illuminate my face. "Daniel," I said softly. "Look at me. Really look at me." He frowned. His eyes moved over my features, cataloging, comparing. I saw the moment it clicked. I saw the blood drain from his face. "No." He shook his head. "No, that is impossible. You are dead. They showed me the paperwork. They showed me the news articles. You died in a mine collapse." I held out my hand. On my finger was a ring, a simple gold band with a small diamond. His mother's engagement ring, the one I had worn around my neck for 12 years. "Do you remember this?" He stared at the ring. His legs buckled. He slumped against the wall, sliding down until he was sitting on the cold concrete. "Dad," his voice cracked, "is it really you?" I knelt down in front of him. I took his rough, chapped hands in mine. "It is me, son. I am so sorry it took me so long." He started to cry. They were not gentle tears. They were the deep, wrenching sobs of a man who had been holding grief inside for over a decade. I held him. I pulled my son into my arms and held him while he cried, just like I had when he was a boy and had scraped his knee or had a nightmare. I held him and whispered that everything would be okay. "I do not understand," he choked out eventually. "They said you were dead. They said you left debts. They said dangerous people were looking for me. It was all lies, Daniel. Every word." I pulled back and looked into his eyes. There were no debts. There was never any danger. Victoria and Robert have been lying to you for 12 years. They stole the restaurant. They have been keeping you prisoner with threats against Emma. "Emma." He grabbed my arm, suddenly frantic. "Dad, she is sick. The medical bills." "There are no medical bills," I said firmly. "I set up a trust fund before I left. It has been paying for everything. Emma's treatments, her surgeries, everything. The debt they have been holding over your head does not exist." He stared at me. I could see his mind struggling to process what I was saying. 12 years of conditioning, 12 years of fear and guilt, warring with the truth. But Victoria showed me the statements. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Forgeries. I pulled out my phone and showed him the hospital records Catherine had obtained. "Look, zero balance. It has been zero for 8 years. He looked at the screen. He read the numbers. He read them again. Then he looked up at me, and I saw something I had not seen in his eyes since he was a teenager. Rage. "They lied to me," he whispered. His voice was shaking, but not with grief anymore. "They made me work for nothing. They made me sign away my business. They threatened my daughter." "Yes." He stood up. His fists were clenched at his sides. "I am going to kill them." "No." I grabbed his arm. "That is exactly what you are not going to do." He looked at me, surprised by my grip. I was 67, but the mines had made me strong. "If you confront them now," I said, "they will run, or they will call the police and say you attacked them. You will go to prison, and Emma will be alone." "Then what?" His voice broke. "What do we do?" "We destroy them properly." I smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "Tomorrow, they are going to bring you to a meeting. They are going to make you sign papers, giving up any claim to the restaurant. They are going to threaten Emma again to make you comply." "How do you know that?" "Because I am the one buying the restaurant." His eyes widened. "What?" "I set up a shell company. I made them an offer they could not refuse. They think they are about to get $6 million for a property they stole. But when they walk into that conference room, they are going to find something else entirely." "What?" "Justice." The conference room on the 20th floor of the Bentall Center had a spectacular view of Vancouver Harbor. The mountains rose in the distance, snow-capped and indifferent to the drama about to unfold below. I stood by the window, watching the city I had left behind, the city I had returned to reclaim. I wore a suit that cost more than Victoria's car. I looked like what I was, a man who had survived. Catherine sat at the table, reviewing documents. Behind her stood two RCMP officers in plain clothes, waiting. "They are here," Catherine said, checking her phone. "Coming up now." I did not turn around. I listened to the elevator doors open, listened to the confident click of Victoria's heels on the marble floor, listened to Robert's booming laugh as he joked with the lawyers. Then I heard another sound, quieter, shuffling. The sound of a man who had forgotten how to walk with pride. "Daniel." The conference room doors opened. "Good morning," Victoria announced, striding in like she owned the place. "I am Victoria Morrison, and this is—" She stopped. She saw the back of my suit. She saw my posture. Something in her expression flickered with unease. I turned around. The reaction was exactly what I had hoped for. Victoria went pale. Robert dropped his briefcase. The lawyers from their firm looked confused. Daniel stood in the doorway, his face carefully neutral. We had rehearsed this. He needed to let them dig their own grave. "What the hell?" Robert was the first to speak. He stepped forward, squinting at me. "Who are you?" I walked to the table. I placed my hands on the polished wood. "You do not recognize me, Robert?" I asked. "That is disappointing. You gave me $20 2 days ago. Told me to find a shelter." His face went through a rapid series of changes. Confusion, recognition, then terror. "No," he whispered. "No, you are dead." Victoria was faster. Her survival instincts kicked in immediately. "I do not know what kind of scam this is," she said, her voice sharp. "But my father-in-law died 12 years ago. If you are some kind of impersonator—" "Victoria," I said her name like a verdict. "Sit down." Something in my voice made her obey. She sat. Robert sat beside her, still staring at me like I was a ghost. Because, in many ways, I was. "Let me explain what is going to happen," I said. I walked around the table slowly, letting them feel my presence. "You came here to sell a restaurant you stole from my son using forged documents and manufactured debts. You came here expecting a $6 million payday. You are not going to get it. This is ridiculous." Victoria tried to stand. "We have legitimate paperwork. You have forgeries." Catherine slid a folder across the table. "We have the original deed. We have bank records showing the purchase was made entirely with funds from Harold Morrison. We have the surveillance footage of you shredding hospital statements. We have the recordings of you threatening Daniel." "Recordings." Robert went white. "You bugged the restaurant?" "I bugged my restaurant," I corrected. "The one I paid for. The one you have been running like a labor camp for the last decade." Victoria was breathing hard. Her eyes darted to the door, calculating escape routes. "It gets worse," I said. I opened another folder. "This is from Revenue Canada. For 12 years, you have been collecting rent from a trust in my name. Payments meant for Daniel's care. $200,000 a year. Deposited into your personal accounts. Never declared as income. That is tax evasion. That is fraud." Robert made a sound like a deflating balloon. "You cannot prove." "I can prove everything." I leaned in close. "I have 12 years of bank records. I have testimony from the hospital administrator. I have your own words, recorded, where you laugh about keeping my son enslaved." I pressed play on my phone. Victoria's voice filled the room. "Danny will do what he is told. He thinks he owes us his daughter's life. He is not going anywhere." I let it play. I let them hear themselves. I let them hear the cruelty, the contempt, the calculated evil. When it finished, Victoria was crying. Not tears of remorse, tears of fury at being caught. "You bastard," she hissed. "You were supposed to be dead." "I survived a mine collapse, Victoria," I said. "I spent 8 months trapped underground with a broken leg. I spent years fighting corrupt officials who tried to steal my mining claims. Do you really think you were going to beat me?" I turned to Daniel. He was standing straighter now, his chin up, his eyes clear. "Daniel," I said, "these are the papers they wanted you to sign. The waiver of claims. The final surrender of your birthright." I picked up the document from the table. I held it up so everyone could see. They were going to threaten Emma again to make you sign this. They were going to tell you that without their money, your daughter would die. Daniel nodded slowly. He was playing his part perfectly. Emma is not dying, I said. Emma is thriving. Her doctors say she may not need surgery at all, and her medical bills, all $2.4 million of them, have been paid in full by a trust I established before I left. There is no debt. There never was. That is impossible. Victoria stood up, knocking her chair back. I saw the statements. I saw the bills. You saw forgeries, Catherine said coldly. Your forgeries, created to manipulate a grieving father into slavery. I ripped the waiver in half. The sound was crisp in the silent room. I ripped it again and again, letting the pieces fall to the floor like confetti. There will be no sale, I said. There will be no payday. There will be no escape. I nodded to the officers by the door. They stepped forward. Victoria Morrison, Robert Morrison, you are under arrest for fraud, extortion, tax evasion, and theft over $5,000. You cannot do this, Robert screamed. He lunged toward me, his face contorted with rage. I will kill you. I will kill you both. He did not get far. One of the officers intercepted him with practiced efficiency. There was a brief struggle, a grunt of pain, and Robert was on the ground, his arm twisted behind his back. I watched him thrash and curse. I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Victoria did not fight. She just stood there, staring at me with pure hatred. You ruined everything, she spat. I gave that boy a roof over his head. I fed him. I kept him alive. You kept him enslaved, I corrected. You stole his business. You threatened his child. You made him work 20-hour days for a debt that did not exist. That is not charity, Victoria. That is torture. The officers cuffed her. She started to scream about lawyers, about rights, about how I would regret this. I let her scream. It changed nothing. As they led her toward the door, I called out, Victoria. She turned, her face twisted with rage. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out a $20 bill, the same bill Robert had thrown at my feet in the restaurant. I dropped it on the floor. For the commissary, I said. You are going to need it. The door closed behind them. The screaming faded. And finally, there was silence. I turned to Daniel. He was standing in the middle of the room, his hands trembling at his sides. It is over, I said softly. He looked at me. Then he crossed the room in 3 quick strides and wrapped his arms around me. He held on tight, like he had when he was a little boy and I had come home from a long trip. I thought you were dead, he whispered. For 12 years, I thought you were dead. I know. I held him back. I am so sorry, son. I am so sorry I could not get home sooner. We stood like that for a long time, father and son, reunited at last. Finally, Daniel pulled back. He wiped his eyes. What now? Now, I said, we go see your daughter. We go tell her that her grandfather is home and that he is never leaving again. We found Emma in her hospital room, just finishing her lunch. She looked up when we walked in, and her face broke into a brilliant smile. Daddy. She reached out her arms, and Daniel rushed to hug her. I stood in the doorway, watching them. My son and my granddaughter. The family I had fought so hard to return to. Emma looked at me over Daniel's shoulder. Her eyes were curious, unafraid. Who is that, Daddy? Daniel pulled back. He looked at me, then at Emma. This, he said, his voice thick with emotion, this is your grandfather, my dad. Emma's eyes went wide. Your daddy? But I thought. He was lost for a long time, Daniel said. But he found his way home. I walked over to the bed. I sat down carefully on the edge and looked at this little girl I had never met. Hello, Emma, I said. My name is Harold. I am very, very happy to meet you. She studied me seriously, the way children do when they are deciding whether to trust someone. Do you like dinosaurs? She asked finally. I smiled. I love dinosaurs. She grinned. She reached out and took my hand. Her fingers were small and warm. Will you read me a story? She asked. Daddy always reads me stories, but his voice gets tired. I would be honored. She handed me a book. It was well worn, the spine cracked from countless readings. I opened it to the first page, and there, in a hospital room in Vancouver, with my son standing behind me and my granddaughter snuggled against my side, I began to read. The story in the book was about a knight who went on a long journey and faced many dangers, but who never stopped fighting to get home to his family. It was not so different from my own story, really. I read until Emma fell asleep, her head resting on my arm, her breath soft and even. Daniel was crying again, silent tears rolling down his cheeks. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for coming back." I reached out and squeezed his hand. "I am home, son," I said, "and I am not going anywhere." We sat there together, the three of us, as the afternoon sun painted the room in gold. Outside, the city went on with its business, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded. The restaurant would reopen tomorrow, with Daniel as the rightful owner. The lawyers would sort out the legal mess. Victoria and Robert would face justice. But all of that could wait. For now, there was only this. My family, safe, together. It had taken 12 years, but I had found my way home at last. If you learned anything from my story, let it be this. The most dangerous enemies are often the ones who share your dinner table. They smile while they steal your birthright. They laugh while they enslave your children. But the truth has a way of coming out, and justice, though it may be delayed, is never denied. I learned something else in those cold years in the Arctic. Revenge is a dish best served cold, but redemption is a gift you give yourself. I could have killed them. I thought about it, in those dark moments in the mine, when I did not know if I would ever see daylight again. I thought about all the ways I would make them suffer, but in the end, I did not need to destroy them. I just needed to take back what was mine, and let the law do the rest. Pamela and Robert are in prison now. They will be there for a long time. And my son, my brave, patient, loving son, is finally free. The restaurant is his again. He renamed it. He calls it Emma's Place now. It is doing well. People come from all over Vancouver to eat there. And me? I retired. For real this time. No more mines, no more expeditions, no more disappearing into the wilderness. I have a small apartment near the restaurant. I go there every Sunday for family dinner. Emma calls me Grumpy Harold because I pretend to complain about her cooking. I am the luckiest man alive. If you are fighting your own battle right now, if someone has taken something from you and you feel like giving up, do not. Keep fighting. The dawn always comes. And when it does, you will be ready. If you enjoyed this story, hit the like button and subscribe for more tales of justice and redemption.